Hi, you're listening to She Shield, your one stop pod for all topics personal safety. I'm your host, Sofia, and my goal is to help educate women and men on concealed carry, martial arts, and all topics self defense. Today, we have Paul Sharp on the show. I'm so excited for him to be here. I got to meet Paul at the Guardian conference put on by concealcarry.com and Mountain Man Medical. So I'm so glad you're here, Paul. I would love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Cool. All right. Well, first, thank you for having me on. It's an honor, to anytime anybody wants to hear what I have to say, I think that's really cool. And I hope they never regret it. So, um, but yeah, so I'm Paul Sharp, and I have been training in this kind of multidisciplinary space since around 1992 or 93. I was introduced to this stuff by a guy named Carlos Hernandez, who at that time was a sergeant in the Hialeah, Florida Police Department. And he introduced us to the idea of not just jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu in the more traditional sense, which was it's a battlefield art. It's an art meant to be practiced where weapons are present. And so that really kind of blew my mind. I never thought about mixing the two. I had trained weapons and then I trained empty hand. I never mixed them. And so that was really cool. So that was my introduction to this kind of stuff. In, say, 98 is when I began my law enforcement career. And that continued until 2018. While I was involved in law enforcement, I had the opportunity to do a lot of really cool stuff. I was a resident officer. I was involved in SWAT. I worked undercover. I was on the range as a lead pistol instructor, and that gave me really cool opportunities from everything like getting my hands on the first RMRs, the first generation RMRs, to writing the SOP for our officers in 2013, 2014 to carry red dots pistols, and just a whole like host of things that had I not been in that position, in that job, I never would have got to do. And so that led me up until 2018. I retired, and then I went to work in a small town helping out a friend who was revamping the police department there. And when I say small, the town was less than 5,000 people. So a lot of times I was working by myself, and which was a really interesting experience. And then I retired from that in 2020 once he got everything up and running, and I was able to fully step away. And then I went into, just in time for COVID, went full time into the gym business. And that's where I am today. And I live in Boise, Idaho, and I'm a program director for a very large MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, all fight sports gym. So it's kind of where I'm at. So hopefully that covered everything, but
It was wonderful. Thank you. If you didn't cover that, I was going to ask you to go through your timeline. So that's perfect. And if you think of anything else,
yeah.
don't be afraid to shout it out. It may come up in conversation. Yeah. And we were talking
Right?
before this episode, you have quite a few people competing this weekend. Are you pretty excited for that?
Yeah, I am stoked. So we have over 20 adults, over 30 kids in a jiu-jitsu competition. And then we have one fighter competing tomorrow night. So Friday night, he'll be fighting his first pro fight. And then Saturday night, we have four other fighters that are going to be competing in a local promotion, in addition to all the people that we have competing in jiu-jitsu. And then I forgot, we have three people, I think, competing in Muay Thai. One of them, their opponent had to drop because he got hurt, unfortunately. But that's part of the game. So they're looking, they're kind of scrambling to find a replacement for him. So hopefully he didn't do this whole fight camp only to go sit there and watch everybody else compete. So, but yeah, we stay busy. We stay busy. We have on average every morning we have jiu-jitsu comp team from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And on average we have about 20 people that show up and just get after it. It's a very tough room. It's a killer room. Yeah, it's awesome.
That's incredible.
in all the best ways,
Absolutely.
So sometimes horrible, but
yeah.
Yeah, it is. So our classes, we average about, I want to say we as of last month, we were averaging 17 per class during the day. Nighttime classes are crazy. Nighttime classes, there'll be 40 to 60 people per class, and we'll
Wow.
run 3 classes simultaneously.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there'll be around 120 people in there at night, and that doesn't count the smaller group sessions that are going on. We have a ladies only class, judo comp teams going, MMA comp team. Those are smaller groups on side mats and side rooms that are training. So at any given moment, there can be up to 200 people in there doing work during the nighttime hours. So from 6 to 9, there'll be
Wow.
a bunch of people.
I'm sure it gets pretty
Yeah,
loud. And do the windows fog up in the
it's
winter?
yeah, it gets loud. Yeah. We had so during the summer, because we're in the high desert. During the summer, when I come in there in the morning at 5:45 to get everything opened up for comp team, it'll be 92 to 95 degrees in there.
Oh,
So
yeah.
just yeah, the residual heat it's kind of cool,
Yeah.
like it's really cool actually. It's almost like the place just vibrates,
Oh,
it's just
okay.
always like this hum, of
Yeah.
just energy, because the building never gets to sit still for long, and we share the building with a CrossFit that is a very large competitive CrossFit. Like the owner of the CrossFit's been to the CrossFit games and all that stuff, and they send competitors to the Olympic trials for weightlifting, and they compete on the Olympic circuit, and then they have people that compete on the CrossFit games and all the other things. So that place is always jumping too. So between the two gyms it's a warehouse in that one building, that place never rests. It's always jumping. So
Wow.
it's really cool. I
Oh,
gotta
it sounds
gotta say I love it.
amazing. I'm about to move to Boise. So that's how you say it, right? Boise?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. No,
Yeah. Yeah. Come
I don't
on
think I've
up.
ever said it out loud. Oh, I'll have to visit. It sounds like a lot of fun. And your wife
Yeah.
rolls there too, correct?
Yeah.
You've mentioned
Yeah.
that.
She's a purple belt.
Amazing.
She loves to compete. We have so probably a third of our comp team is female athletes, and
Wow.
they are savage. Yeah, they
I
are
believe it.
savage, man. So yeah.
Yes. I've always told
So
people
it's
that
really
are
cool.
new to getting into jiu-jitsu, they ask me like what to look for when they go to a gym. Not that I'm, a crazy jiu-jitsu competitor, but I have been to quite a few gyms and I've noticed different
Yeah.
dynamics. And I always tell them to look at the females at the gym. Are there a lot of females? Do they all seem to be
Hmm.
comfortable? Does it look like a friendly environment for them? And if there's a large
Yeah.
a quantity of females there, it's usually a good sign. So that's so cool to hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. So we want to have, we tell people too the similar, right? Like look for a good cross section. So you want to see classes that have people of all ages. You want to see a good number of female athletes out there training, and you want to see a good thriving kids program, because if they have those things in place, that means they have a good culture, because moms are the gatekeeper to everything. And if the culture is toxic, they're not going to bring their kids there. And so they're not going to be training. And then, like you said, if you don't see any females there, then that means something happened that scared them away. Something happened that made them uncomfortable, and it's probably not going to be very healthy. And so we always look for those things, and we always strive to make sure we have that balance, So we want to have the killers, the savages, but at the same time, in that most savage practice that we have in our gym, which is would arguably, like, we go back and forth. Like the MMA guys are like, our practice is much worse than yours. I'm like, whatever, dude. Like we have like 4 or 5 guys throwing up at the same time, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. But but our MMA comp practice will have, so there might be 15 guys in there getting after it, and there will be 5 female athletes. So there will be, like we just had Riley Martinez. She just competed in Invicta and won in the first round, very decisive win. Stephanie Hernandez, she just got her contract with Global Combate, which is a promotion out of Miami. She just signed a 5-fight contract with them. And then we have like 4 or 5, and Vita fighting in Bellator. So we have 5 at any given time. There'll be 4 or 5 female athletes in the MMA room. And then also in the Jiu-Jitsu comp team room, we'll have, there's 20, 25 people in there. There'll be 6 or 7 female athletes. So even in our harshest environment, they still are good to go. They're still coming in and feeling safe. And my wife, Jill, she tells people all the time, like, the safest I ever feel is in the comp team room. And that's the only time she can really train because of her work schedule. But she tells people all the time when they're like, hey, I want to try comp team, but it looks scary. Those guys are killers in there, and she's like, I never feel safer than when I'm in there with those men. Those guys are actually what men are supposed to be. Like, they will push you as hard as they can push you, but they also respect you, and they expect you to push back. They're not
Right.
babies, so
Yes.
it's pretty cool.
Love
But
that.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. When people are looking for gyms, yeah, I give them the same advice. Like, look for a good kids program, look for plenty of females, and look for a good, diverse population of all types of people and everything, Then if it's all 20 to 25-year-old dudes, it's probably not the gym that you want to be in,
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Having spent
Yeah. I got a few I'm thinking back
yeah,
to. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah,
That's a actually very common question I get, and I love going with people to their first class just to kind of like feel the place
yeah,
out and see what it's about. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I'm so grateful that you're here. As I told you before we started the episode, one of my goals for She Shield was to bridge that gap between hand-to-hand combat and owning and carrying a gun,
yeah,
and like weapons-based entanglement, bringing that to the surface for people to learn about, because I didn't even know about it until a friend recommended a course by Craig Douglas, and I showed up thinking it was going to be all about. I was panicked about my marksmanship, and then like next thing I know, I'm in the Thunderdome in a helmet, and I was like, "Wait, what's happening?" So, like, so glad, so glad I went, because I was like, "What is this world? No one's told me about it," and
yeah,
of all the people that may need it, a female that was traveling alone. I mean, because I was going to a bunch of classes
sure,
back to back. I mean, I really did need it. And I was like one of 4
yeah,
civilians there out of all the law enforcement. I think it's been a while.
yeah,
I need to go back. Sorry, Craig, but I uh, I was welcomed, or I guess introduced to that world, and so since then I've been trying to just get as many people to speak on it, and having you speak on it today was
yeah,
such an honor. So, um, kind of pivoting in that direction, what was your first
yeah,
introduction to weapons based entanglement?
yeah. So Carlos Hernandez, like I said, he was a sergeant in Hialeah, and they had a situation where an officer got in into a kind of a scrum or a entanglement, and so Carlos said, "Hey, man, let's just take these." He went and bought these Daisy BB pistols
Okay.
that are like spring loaded, like you just single shot, and we got those things and wooden knives back then. That's all you could get, with like these wooden training knives that were giant. And we put on safety goggles, like the old like shop teacher safety glasses, and we would have to tape them to keep them in place. And we just went at it. We just scrapped, and we would either wear lacrosse gloves or like kempo karate gloves, because there weren't really MMA gloves back then. And we would just beat the crap out of each other and figure out what would work and what wouldn't. And that was my introduction. And we just started kind of figuring it out and problem solving. And then we would do it from the perspective of, okay, you're under mount. This guy's on top of you, beating the crap out of you. He has a gun. You have a gun. Go. And so we would do these situations where we would just do round after round after round. And over time, we started figuring out what worked and what didn't. And the interesting thing is, pretty much at the same time, Craig Douglas was doing his thing, but he was more based in the Filipino martial arts and that kind of stuff. And we were based in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. So we were training at a place called Lord's Gym, which is a huge boxing gym in Miami at the time. And we were training with a Carlson Gracie black belt, Kona Silve, who now runs American Top Team. And so we were coming at it from that perspective where we were training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I had wrestled my whole life. I started wrestling when I was 6.
Wow.
We had these giant dudes that played football for the Hurricanes. So we had this mix of just big, strong, athletic guys who were all trained in jiu-jitsu, all boxing. So basically fight sports. And now we're trying to figure out the weapons piece. And Carlos was cool in that he said, hey, man, jiu-jitsu's always been a battlefield art. You can find depictions in Japanese art and of, guys on the field. They've lost their armor, they've lost their sword, whatever, but they're still tying up hand to hand and, holding the sword out, like basically a 2-on-1 to keep themselves from being stabbed. And so we started working on that kind of stuff, and we quickly figured out what works and what didn't. So by 1995, 96, we had figured out like 2-on-1 is the way to go, regardless of the weapon. So if they have a pistol or if they have a knife, if I can get both of my hands on their arm and I can separate their arm from their body, so not like actually separate it, but you know what I mean? Like get their elbow, I guess is a better way of saying it, get their elbow away from their body so that they can't get their hip behind their elbow, so they can't turn that arm into us using their body. So if you can get their arm so it's out like this, like away, now, and I can fill this space with my body, you're not going to hurt me. Because now your arm is stuck out here and away, and I can isolate that arm and keep it off of me and keep that weapon off of me. And then I can start delivering headbutts and knees and all those things to start to diminish your capacity. So eventually I can either get out of there or introduce my own weapon. And we figured out quickly too, introducing your own weapon while on the surface seems to be a great idea. Sometimes it's just not. And you probably figured that out in ECQC pretty quickly, right?
Yep.
Which is poor timing decisions
Yes.
are really poor timing decisions, right? So
Absolutely.
in an actual fight, you might never get a chance to revisit that poor timing decision. So we figured out pretty quickly, if I mess up, I go for it too soon. Well, now we're fighting over it instead of fighting with it. And so all these things just kind of grew over time. And then when I got to the police department in 98, they were surprisingly open to this, which was really cool. So one of the team leaders on the SWAT team saw me training. I'm not really sure. I can't remember how he saw that. I don't know if he was driving by or whatever. It was on his own time, and I had friends and we would go to the park and we would just do the same stuff that I had been doing in Miami, except now we're in the Chicago area. And we would go to the park and just get it on, and continue experimenting, continue working like full force stick fighting, the whole thing. Just let's test it. Nothing is theory. Nothing is like law. Everything is tested. Everything's a theory, right? And so we would test ourselves constantly. And so one of the team leaders from the SWAT team saw us out there beating the crap out of each other. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And so I explained it to him. And he said, hey, would you mind coming to our next SWAT training? Next time we do combatives in SWAT, would you mind coming and just show this stuff? And that was it. That was like 99, 2000. And that was really the genesis of me diving headfirst into that stuff. And then finding Craig Douglas and some of the other guys who were also doing the same thing, working on the same problem, trying to solve the same problem, and then being able to just compare notes and talk with them and talk about what's working, what's not, and all that good stuff. And that was, yeah. So that's kind of where all that came from. That was the kind of the beginning point for me, was getting shot with a stupid Daisy BB gun.
Wow.
And then, yeah, like sim guns are so nice. Like we have it so nice now. I think that was like so
That's
Even
so
those
funny.
nasty fist helmets that Craig used to have were still a step up,
Really.
from having to duct tape goggles.
I'm
We
yeah.
would use goggles. Yeah, like the goggles that they use for welding. We would use those, and
I can picture them.
you'd have to run duct tape around them to hold them.
Oh, yeah.
So if you had, if you had a buzzed head, it was great. If you
Yeah,
didn't, not so good.
right.
Not so good. But you had to, otherwise they would come off in the fight. And we use motorcycle helmets too. So but now, with all the advances now in training equipment and the effort people put into it, there's no reason why you can't train safely and do this work.
Right.
I think it's important too. Like for you, at what point did you do ECQC in your kind of like your training journey, so to speak? When did you do that?
So ECQC was around, so I got my blue belt, took a break, blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I'd been training Muay Thai before that. Started to combine the two. Started to conceal carry and then wonder how the world's connected. So I'd taken like a 6 month break from jiu-jitsu and then went to ECQC, which a lot of those
Oh, cool.
jiu-jitsu components don't really leave you. Like I still like I was surprised to feel how much came back naturally to me, but as far
Yeah.
as my proficiency, it obviously had lowered. But around then, is that the answer you wanted?
Yeah.
Okay.
So about like, yeah, so like 6 months into concealed carry.
Yes, yes. Yeah, or
Yeah.
serious concealed
So
carry, like
that's
really.
perfect.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's perfect because there's kind of a theory in the first responder world that if you don't have a serious life threatening event in the first 18 months of your career, you will never get serious about training because you will always just assume it it worked out because it worked out. Like you would just, like, hey, nothing went wrong, right? That's one of those things where you have a positive outcome from negative tactics. And so you just assume you're that good, but you're not. And so I feel like the sooner that people get into ECQC or something like that in their concealed carry journey, the sooner they understand that it's not just about the gun. And that's the biggest hurdle is people are like, I had a guy, I taught a class at the site, and this guy did not want to do any of the combative stuff. And I told him, like, you read the class description. This is a combatives and shooting class. And he's like, yeah, but I'll just pull my gun. And we're doing this part where we have the red gun. So we're working with the red guns and we're working on in-fight weapon access. And I go, so if I have you by the throat, you think you're just going to pull your gun and that's going to be it? And he's like, yeah. Like, how are you going to stop me? So I did. I just jammed his hand up, grabbed him by the throat, pinned him against the wall. I'm like, get out. He's like, well, I'll shoot you. I'm like, I'm waiting, you know? And it was interesting to see that the light just never came on for him. But for
Yeah.
everybody else in the class, there was some other people in the class who were like, damn, bro, that was scary, you
Yeah,
know? And I'm
it
like,
was.
yeah, right. And so I feel like, people who go to something like ECQC early on understand better that you need something between the harsh word and the handgun. You need the ability to de-escalate. You need the ability to, avoid, deter, and de-escalate, right? You also need the ability to, if necessary, go hands-on with some level of proficiency that opens the window for you to actually get to the tools if that's what you're going to have to do. But a lot of people just assume, hey, man, I got a sub-second draw. I'm good. Like, maybe. And also,
Right.
maybe you get that sub-second draw and you make a hit, but it doesn't stop them because it's not the first time they've been shot or stabbed, in their lifetime and survived it. So now they just know they're going to kill you because you tried to kill them. So I feel like if more people started off with something like ECQC early, it would alter their trajectory as far as how do I order my trainings? How do I build out my training from here? Right. I just think it's so
Absolutely.
important. I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you had that experience because it does alter you. Right.
Absolutely. No, thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. It absolutely does. I was humbled from night 1 when we had to use our voice for managing unknown contacts. Before that,
Yeah.
I don't know. People, I would tell them what I do. I have a page for women's concealed carry. I did Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. People would call me a badass. I was like, wow, a response. Wow, you're a badass. Wow, I wouldn't want to mess with you. And then I drive up to
Yeah.
ECQC and Craig, partners us up and we have to yell at someone to get back. And all of a sudden, I can't find my voice at all. And did not feel like a badass.
Right.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, "You're fine, just yell at me." And I was like, "Can you be meaner about it? Like, you're way too nice. I don't want to yell at you."
Yeah.
And I realized that it hit me at some point, like I wasn't helping him train by being skittish or what's the word, shy. So I got to a point where I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna find my voice. I'm gonna yell at you." And I remember leaving ECQC and going to this really sketchy gas station. I was really low on gas, really bad situation I put myself in, but pulled off. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking most people would maybe feel like a course like that would empower you, but I mean, it empowered me. Don't get me wrong, but empower you to
Sure.
the point where you're like, yeah, come fight me. But I remember feeling like I never want to get in a fight, never, ever, ever, ever. Like, and
Right.
like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I hadn't faced that before because
Yeah.
nothing realistic had ever happened. And not that you need to get into a shooting to understand it. That's why you all simulate it so well because experience is a bad teacher, or shouldn't be,
Right.
the only option for a teacher. But yeah, I'm so glad you're saying this. Yeah, this is good to
Yeah.
hear.
And it's so important. And I think what you just expressed is such an important insight that so many of my friends who aren't gun people don't understand, which is the more you train in this stuff, the integrated approach, right? The more you train in that, the less you want to get into it. The less I want to get into I'm not looking for the trouble. I'm not. I Because I know what's involved. I also understand how quickly everything can go wrong. No matter how well trained I am, no matter how stacked I have made the odds in my favor, that's not a guarantee, man. Because I've seen the guys who, yeah, we have guys who go through evolutions do really well. We also have guys who go through the evolutions who have done really well and then suddenly they don't. And it's just because they slipped, they tripped, something went wrong and they took a spill. And now they're on the bottom and trying to solve the problem. And they're in such a deficit that they probably aren't going to solve it very well. Like they might solve it, but they're taking damage. And so once you understand that, like training informs you, right? Like training informs your bias. And so now you become biased towards avoidance. Like I want to avoid, which doesn't mean staying in my house, locking all the doors and never coming out, but it just means seeing it so far ahead that it never has a chance to interact with me. Like I see that problem. I recognize it, not going to happen. I'm not going to engage with that. Like you said, I'm not looking for it anymore. Not
Right.
that I ever was, but I'm definitely not now, because I understand just how difficult it is to solve a complex and a rapidly evolving problem. And most people don't get that, and not to knock on guys who only shoot because
Right.
that's cool, but if all I ever did was run El Presidentes, trying to crush like a sub 4 or whatever, um, I might not understand that skill alone isn't going to be enough. Like that skill, having that skill will greatly help me, but it's not enough, and
Absolutely.
also I don't want to find out, so
Right.
that's,
Yes.
so it's cool.
How do you
I'm glad you had that.
Thank you. I'm very fortunate for it. And again, it was kind of like
Yeah.
I stumbled across Craig Douglas. My old co-host was actually like telling me one of his courses was near me, and she was like, "You have to go." And I did. I signed up, and I almost
Yeah.
on impulse, and I'm glad I did. It wasn't like impulsively buying a pair of shoes. I got way more out of it than that. But yeah, it was a good impulse
Right.
buy. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, how do you go about balancing telling someone about this world of weapons based entanglement when maybe they're not in a place where they've asked you about it, or maybe they're not even like ready to hear it? I don't know if that makes sense. I have friends that are very much in the concealed carry world and even have a page for concealed carry, but haven't really thought to, instead of taking like another class for USPSA technique or maybe something to do with rifle, maybe they would benefit from weapons based entanglement. But I don't know how to share that message without it sounding like you need to do this or you'll be in trouble kind of thing. I did not say this any better than before,
Yeah,
but
no, I get it. It's always
yeah.
a challenge, right, to try to get folks to kind of branch out. And the way I usually approach it with the people that are in my circles is just, you want to be as well rounded as possible. Not everything is going to be a shooting solution. Not every problem will be solved by shooting, but you should know how to say, like, somebody's shaking your hand and won't let go. They're they're grabbing your arm and won't let go. How do you get away from that person? How do you get yourself free from that situation? How do you address someone who's coming at you agitated, angry, escalating? How do you talk them down? How do you let them know that you don't want to have any issues? You don't want to have any trouble without getting being run over or pushed around, right? So these are all skills that we can learn. And so it would only be something that would supplement your firearms training, right? And just like I tell the guys on the other side of the fence, the guys who only do jiu-jitsu or only do a fight sport, like, listen, you know, not everything's going to be, you're not going to be able to solve every problem with a good kick to the leg, or a good jab. Like, there's other problems out there that you might want to be able to solve. And so here's this solution. Here's a way to handle this problem. Like, and usually it comes in the form of defense. How do I defend myself against a knife? How do I defend myself against a gun? Like, okay, well, let's work through some things, and then that is almost like the gateway drug to, well, how would I shoot? Like, if I needed to shoot, how does this thing work? I'm like, got you, perfect, you know, and like you were saying, you're saying you teach basic pistol. Pretty much that's all I teach. I don't teach. To me, there's nothing advanced. There's grips, there's sights, and there's a trigger, and how to make hits. That's it. So I want to be really good at the basics, and so everything I teach is basic and builds on that, and just becomes more challenging as we go. And so I I tell them, like, listen, I will get you up to speed in a day. Like, in one day, I'll have you shooting really well, compared to where you start. And then inevitably they fall in love with it. Inevitably they're like, I want to do this all the time. Like, this is my thing. And so we build out from there. So typically that's how I introduce people to it is like, look, especially how the conversation usually comes up is organically. Like, when this thing happened in the subway in New York, I had a whole bunch of people ask me, gun people, how do you put that choke on? Like, did he really kill that guy? And all those questions of, like, can you really kill somebody? Because you guys choke each other all the time. I'm like, yeah, we do, you know? And so then that leads to a conversation about, well, what would you have done in that situation? Because you can't shoot that guy. It's not, I mean, unless you like going to prison, it's not a shooting situation. So how would you handle that? I can give you some tools to handle that. And then that leads us into, here's the steps to become more proficient empty hand. Here's the steps to become more proficient with verbalization and de-escalation and things like that. So I'm not sure if that kind of answered the question or not, but
Does.
yeah, that's usually
Yes.
how I do it for both sides, because I'm in both sides, right? I'm in both worlds. I'm in the world where you have a lot of people who will ask me, like, why do you even carry a gun? Like, you do all this jiu-jitsu stuff. Why would you ever need a gun? And then I have the gun people, who are, why do you need all that jiu-jitsu stuff? You shoot, and it's like, because there's a time and
Yep.
place, right? There's a
Yes.
time and place, and I don't want to be found lacking in either time or place. I want to be, and plus it's fun. It's just
Of
fun.
course.
My wife
Yes.
was showing a video. She went to the site and she did a precision rifle course with Jim Cauber, and who's just a phenomenal instructor, precision rifle guy. And one of her supervisors saw the video and was like, "Why would you ever need to do that?" Just very condescending, you know. And Jill's said, "First, because it's fun. It's a challenge. Like, it's not easy to do everything you need to do to make a precise hit at 600 yards on a moving target through the wind and everything else. Like, it's
Yeah.
not easy, and I can
Right.
do it. And just knowing I can do that is so empowering, especially because a year ago I couldn't. A year ago I wouldn't even know which end of that gun to point at the target, and now I do. You know, and so I I kind of look at it like, why wouldn't you want to learn a skill? Why wouldn't you want to know? Like, this is a cool skill to have. Why wouldn't you want to know it? Why wouldn't you want to learn it? Right? So yeah, sometimes I just, yeah,
That she
right,
would be questioned for that, and also, man, it's not even that she owes anyone an explanation, but I love that she led with that. Like, it's fun for me. That's incredible. She
yeah,
sounds amazing. I want to meet her. Yeah,
yeah. She's way
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
That's
she is
awesome.
way
Yes,
cool.
I see a lot of
Yeah,
your posts together. It's very, very sweet. I love that you guys train and go to the range together. That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, she is down. She is always like, "Are we gonna go shoot? Let's go."
Ah,
You know.
love it.
So
Yes.
it's just, we're gonna go do jujitsu. Like, our gym, our garage is matted.
Uh
So we
huh.
have mats out there. It's like, it's a judo floor, so it's actually the spring floor.
Yes.
So we can work throws and takedowns and all that stuff. And so any given moment, she will, because we'll watch YouTube, we'll watch jujitsu stuff, on YouTube or whatever. And she's like, "Can we go try that?" I'm like, "Heck yeah."
That's
Like,
awesome.
let's
Yes.
go. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Oh,
it's
that's
cool. It
lovely.
is. Yeah. It's definitely,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a good spot to be in. So,
I've joked with my friends who have their partner and them like do training together. My main training partner, her husband is actually a black belt instructor, and he's helped her a lot with her journey. And I always joke with her, I'm like, is it kind of like when you go canoeing with someone, like it's the ultimate test of like, are we gonna make it? Do we communicate well? And she was like, kind of, yeah. Like she's talked a little bit
yeah.
about that. I've actually wanted them to come on to talk about like dating and jiu-jitsu because I feel like um I've met a lot of couples in it, and I just think it's an interesting dynamic. It's definitely something to talk about for sure. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
I've also seen that you're a knife instructor. Is that, or I guess
Mhm.
knife entanglement? I What's your specialty there? What do you currently instruct with that?
Yeah, so currently I just mostly teach defense against the knife, so counter knife. I don't really teach a lot of offensive use of the knife. So I got my instructor certificate in the Filipino martial arts back in the 90s. And so I was training in Prakita Tertia and a couple other systems um, of the Filipino martial arts and blade systems, as well as impact or sticks, flexible weapons, and then also the combination of the two. And then I also spent some time working on different, like, Spanish knife, Italian knife. There's the American based system, the Bowie knife system, a couple of things like that. So I just kind of, like, back to like what we were just talking about. Like, why wouldn't you want to learn it? It's just cool, you know.
Right.
And so, yeah, and so I studied a whole bunch of different knife systems over the 30 years or so of doing that. Um, and it's just always been something that intrigues me. I like it. It's fun. It helps with movement. But most of what I do now is totally on the other side of it, which is just defense. How do you stop somebody from hurting you with any type of edge weapon? So that's where my focus is now. So most of my classes, when I teach self defense, it will either be um, empty hands with an emphasis on avoidance, deterrence, and de-escalation, or it will be counter knife, like defense against the knife. And that's usually driven by current events. Something will happen where, somebody gets attacked with a knife. We had a homeless guy come into the gym and stole some geese out of the wash machine. and then ran outside. At that time, the wash machines were in a common hallway area. And so, yeah, he stole these geese out of the wash, and one of our guys kind of chased him outside and confronted him, and he pulled out a knife,
Oh,
and yeah. And fortunately, we had just done a knife defense seminar about 3 months before that. So he remembered, and he was able to isolate the arm, take the guy to the ground, hold him down till the police got there. So it ended well. But then, of course, everybody wants to do another knife defense seminar because,
right.
hey, what if that was me? So
Of
that's kind of
course.
how that stuff. That's kind of how that stuff happens. It's not something I actively market. It's usually some sort of current event, and then people are like, "Hey, can you teach the knife thing again?" So when I lived in Illinois, we taught the knife class at the site. Generally, once a month, we would do a counter knife. But then, so Saturday would be counter knife, like how to deal with somebody using a knife against you, and then Sunday would be how to use a knife. So I would teach. I would get to kind of dive back into the more offensive use of the knife. So that's always fun. So
Absolutely. That sounds like a lot of
yeah,
fun. I used to
yeah,
train a little bit of Krav until I did
yeah,
knife control concepts. I didn't really understand like the arm control thing, and I did a little bit of it with Ben Aubin at Redbeard Combatives, and it's still something to this day that I don't even feel comfortable wearing a knife on me. I haven't
yeah.
trained enough with it offensively or even defensively. If it gets taken from me, something like that. And
Sure.
it's something that I hear a lot of women say, like, "Oh, I'm good. I have my knife on me," and I'm sure you get that a lot from
Oh
people
yeah,
that yes. So I would love to know, how do you navigate that conversation?
yeah. So yeah, what with guys, what I'll typically do is give them a trainer, and I'll say, get it out, like because it's always a clip it knife. Rarely is it a fixed blade. It's usually a clip it style knife, and I'll say, try to get it out, and they can't, and then that starts the conversation about there's a method, there's a way to access that thing, there's a way to open it, that's robust and repeatable and reliable, and so then we have that conversation, and with the women, what I'll tip, because they'll have it clipped to their bag a lot of times. So they'll have it in their bag, or they'll have it clipped to their bag in some form. Like most of them, they usually don't have it on them because pants for women aren't made with pockets, right?
Right,
So,
right. Mm-hmm.
you know, yeah.
Yes.
So where are you going to put that? Where are you going to put
Right.
it? And how are
It's
you going to carry it?
chunky,
And
doesn't go with the outfit, you know?
yeah, and
Yeah.
you're right. And so I'm like,
Right.
okay, well, get it out. And
Mhm.
that starts the conversation because, like, get it out. They can't.
Right.
You know, you're never going to get it out before I get a hold of you. And so now we can then start to have the conversation about what's an intermediary defense? Like, what's something you could put between us? What could you do? Like, what role does pepper spray play in slowing me down, in crossing the distance between us and getting to you, and then giving you time to access a tool? And so then we can have those conversations. But yeah, it generally starts with, well, show me how you would do it. And then they
Okay.
realize, never thought about this, never put
Right.
any time into it, you know? So,
Yes. I'm
right.
I'm happy to hear that you start by challenging them in the sense that, like, they they almost learn it themselves because as they're pulling it out, you move in too quickly or something like that. I feel
Yeah.
like that's the best way to show someone something, just from the little I've trained in that area. Um, and something I've seen a lot lately is this was a comment. This is so funny. Like, certain comments stick with me on TikTok. Most of it's support, truly and honestly. But when they're hateful, they're hateful. You know what I mean?
Oh
But
yeah. Oh
some of
yeah.
the questions, I'm like, you know what? Like, I wonder how to answer this best, because I was going hiking and I had at the time, if I go hiking, I do have a knife on me to, like, if I have to cut something. I would never pick it up as my first, choice of weapon. That's my palm pepper
Yeah.
spray and my firearm. But I have had comments like a knife, a gun, pepper spray, flashlight, like like, who are you fighting, like John Wick or something? And I've wondered, like, how do you balance that force escalation when you have those three options? So like pepper spray, knife, gun. Like, do you personally carry those three on you at one time?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
do.
So
Okay.
generally I have, yeah, so I'll have palm pepper spray in my left pocket,
Okay.
clipped on. So I like the clip option. And then we typically will have a pistol appendix. There's a, so I use tier one stuff, and so I have my pistol and a spare mag right there. And then usually either I've been playing around a lot with the Disciple lately, just because
Okay.
I've been kind of revisiting some old movement patterns from the Kita Tersha side of the house. But I'll usually have clinch pick or push dagger, punch dagger clipped on, and that's just how I walk around. I don't, and I just look at it like I would rather have options. I'd
Makes
rather have
sense.
things on me and never need it than, like I wear my seatbelt not because I'm looking forward to getting into an accident, but
Right.
it's in case I do. Like I can't control what everybody else is going to do. I'm going to drive as offensively as possible. I'm going to keep an eye. I'm looking long. I'm watching everything down range and behind me, watching cars around me. I've driven in the city for 25, 26 years, around the Chicago area. I know
Wow.
how to navigate,
Yeah,
but
you
I
know.
can't guarantee, yeah, I can't guarantee what people are going to do to the left and right of me or behind me. I watched, yesterday, I watched a lady at the light next to me and I watched her looking in her rearview mirror. I saw the kind of that quick movement, and I looked over and the car coming up behind her, you can see it's a kid texting, not paying attention and not slowing down. So does it help to have a seatbelt, airbags, all that stuff? Absolutely, because
Right.
you just don't know, and it's better to have it and not have it. Just like the
Absolutely.
spare tire analogy, right? Like I
Mhm.
have a spare tire in my car. I never want to use it, but
Right.
it's there. You know. So yeah, and another side of that too is I'm to a point where I don't engage with those guys. I just don't, because I also feel like if you don't get it, that's cool, but and I hope you never have reason to get it. But I've seen enough violence in my life, inflicted on others and on myself, that I understand the need, and so I'm never going to make somebody feel bad. Like I'm not going to do, like John Farnham, he's kind of famous for walking around with, two guns on him and a backup pistol, and just like if he ever fell overboard, he's in trouble. Like he's
Right.
got so much weight on him,
Yeah. Yeah. Right
from
to the
all the
bottom. Yeah.
gear, you know. But
Yeah.
at the same time, though, is it my business to criticize somebody like that or to weigh in and feel like my opinion matters? Like, no, man. Because at the same time, neither am I harshing on the people that don't carry anything, you know?
Right.
Like, I'm glad you've lived in a world where that's not necessary up until this point, and I hope you continue to live in that world.
Absolutely.
I hope you are never in a position where you wish you had it, you know? But would I advise you continue to do that? No. Am I going to actively seek you out and comment or have, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
I just don't engage with those people. I'm like, nah,
Right.
dude, you're, not going to waste my time. Kind of like we were talking about before we started recording, right? Conversations that I want to have versus conversations I just not interested in having. I'll walk away, you know, like
Absolutely.
I want to save my bandwidth, you know?
Yes. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to be clear, I'm not dogging on people that carry a knife, gun, and pepper spray. If I knew how to
No.
fight with a knife, I would absolutely have one. I'd
Yeah.
also
Heck
have a
yeah.
fixed blade. Yeah, yeah. And I will get there.
Yeah.
I really will.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's really heavy into that space, Kristen Irwin of the Healthy Buffalo. And she's talked about all the training she's done, one of her instructors, and I'm probably butchering how she explained this, but this is from our one of our mini conversations not too long ago. But they like wrap they'll wrap like an actual pig, I guess, like a pig carcass. I don't know if that's the correct word. In like
Yeah,
plastic or something to simulate what it would feel like to stab um a human body. And
yeah,
she was like, until then, like I trained for so long. She was like, until then, I didn't really know what it felt like. And like she walked around with one before even knowing that feeling. And now that she's felt that, she feels more prepared. And so there are all these different things I want to go through and until I get to that point. But
yeah.
um yeah,
Yeah, no, I get it. And then, like, I don't think you're harshing on those people. I think it's smart to be like, look, I haven't trained in this. I'm not going to carry it. You know, um, would I use an AR for home defense? Absolutely. Because I've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of rounds through that platform. Right.
right,
However, if somebody were to say like, hey, why don't you use a shotgun for your home defense? Because, I don't,
right,
the last time I did a shotgun class was like, probably in the early 2000s, and I haven't shot one outside of just recreational purposes since then. So it would be foolish for me to say, hey, let me forego this platform that I'm better with to make everybody on the internet happy by shooting this or doing this. It's like, look,
right,
you have your lethal option there, right? You have your pistol, you have your less than lethal options, which are pepper spray and things like that. Until you fill in the gap with training, why would you carry something that you're not qualified, so to speak, to carry, right?
right,
Because the main qualification is going to be in your head. Like, have I put the time in? Have I trained with this, right? And if you don't believe in your ability to use it, you're going to be hesitant. And when you hesitate, you're going to get in trouble, So it's better to just like, nope, yeah, not going to do it. So, no, I totally agree with that choice. With that decision.
right.
It's awesome. It just takes yeah, it's self-awareness,
Yes,
right?
right.
Like, this is not something I should do. Just like if somebody would be like, hey, I got a shotgun here, you know, and I got an AR. I'm gonna go with the AR,
Yeah,
you know, like,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, like, sure. Like
Yes.
even if the internet's like, no, grab the shotgun, like,
Yeah.
eh,
This isn't Call of
you
Duty,
know,
dude. It's not all the
no,
same. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's not the same, and
Right.
I'm not current on it. It would be
Right.
stupid. So yeah, you know,
Absolutely.
so
So while we're on that topic, I didn't even plan to ask you this, but someone from my Instagram reached out not too long ago and she was like, "Hey, I'm putting on this women's seminar and I loved it if you would just hop on a Zoom call with me and look at my presentation and give me your feedback." I was like, "Yeah, totally." Cuz I know when I was starting
cool.
out in this space, I just needed people to like help me and I didn't know who to talk
Yeah,
to.
for
So,
sure.
I and that's always so like it's always humbling to like help people at that stage. So, we hopped on a call and um on one of her slides, she mentioned to start the conversation. It's just little bullet points to like for her, to, cueing her to start the conversation about like should you carry one in the chamber. And we
Hmm.
got into a discussion about great discussion on like what it means when someone says I carry, but I don't carry with one in the chamber because I'm not comfortable enough yet. So if someone said
Uh,
that to you before I go into it, what would you think like initial impressions with that statement?
yeah. So one of the things I would try to do is get them to see the advantages or disadvantages, right? And then they can make an informed decision. So just putting them on a timer, like, hey, let's just run some drills and just see, let's see, um, can you get this pistol into play, cycle the action and get it up and ready to go versus just pulling it out and getting on it, right? Like one in the chamber. And so just playing it out through that, I feel like, experience is the best teacher. Not always the greatest teacher, but it does, like the burnt hand teaches best. You'll never do that again, right? So I feel like if I give them an opportunity to create the situation where they can see the advantages or disadvantages for themselves, because a lot of times it's based out of, well, I'm going to have time. I'll have time to rack around. Maybe, you know, um, they'll see a demonstration on the range where a guy comes out, racks around, gets on target. The target's stationary and a good distance away. What about room distance? What about at your car window? What about at the ATM? What about you're standing in line at a store and they walk in behind you? You know, all the different scenarios where we know the defensive use of a pistol comes into play. Will you have time? Will you have the means? Right. So I try to present as much as possible information to people in a way that they self learn, so that the lesson sticks, just like riding a bike. You know, you figure it out by doing it, but you have to have somebody there creating the situation, giving you the opportunity, making sure all the safeties are in place. So yeah, you're going to fall, but you're not going to get broken. So it's the
Right.
same with this. Like, listen, let's just put it on a timer and let's just see what happens. You know, moving at your pace. Not trying to speed, not trying to do anything that you wouldn't ordinarily do. Let's just see what happens, and then go through some scenarios. And then having the ability to have a Sims gun or airsoft nearby so that we can play it out. Like, look, I'm going to stand 5 feet from you and I'm going to walk towards you. Can you get the pistol out, rack around, and put a good hit on me before I get to you? I'm not gonna run, just gonna walk. And what I've found is every time I'm able to walk the 10 feet, 3 yards, I'm able to walk that before they can do it. And that you kind of see the light go on. Like, wait, 3 yards is typical. And I just covered it before you could get yourself into play. Is there an advantage then? Right? Is there an advantage then to eliminating one of those steps? Does that help you a little more? Does that give you a little more time? That's all it is. I get the safety thing, like I totally get it. But I also feel like with training, you overcome that mental hurdle of feeling like it's not safe. Like, listen,
Right.
you've trained for this. You're okay. Like, we know it's not just going to magically go off, you know?
Right.
So so then that eliminates another excuse. So carry it as it's meant to be carried, you know? So
How do you feel about people saying in that situation, if you don't feel comfortable carrying one in the chamber, then maybe you shouldn't carry at all?
I feel like they're giving somebody an absolute that doesn't apply,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
It's, again, like going back to like a car or something like that. Like, hey, I
Right.
don't feel comfortable driving on a highway in rush hour traffic. So then maybe you shouldn't drive at all. Really?
Okay.
Or maybe we should baby step you into it so you do feel comfortable. Like, how about we
Yeah.
create situations where you do become acclimated, and then exposure equals composure, right? Like, the more
Right.
we're exposed to something, the more composed we'll be. So eventually they're driving in rush hour traffic, right? Like, this is how that works. Like, you have to give people a chance to discover for themselves that they're capable. That's the most important thing. If you
Yeah.
immediately cut somebody off and just give them these absolute options, either carry in this certain way or don't carry at all. Well, there's a whole spectrum in there of possibilities that you just eliminated. And we, as coaches and instructors, it's our job to figure out how to get these people to be comfortable with it. It's our job to create situations where they experience success, um, small successes, small wins, and we keep building on it until the point where they can actually feel comfortable carrying. Because again, it's all mental, man. It is all mindset, and that comes from just being put in those situations, working our way through it, solving the problem, and then realizing, hey, I can do this, you know, and
Right.
then they can, you know, then that takes care of it.
So I'm so glad we're talking about this. I will say I'm kind of calling myself out. I have been someone to say that to someone else before. I don't know why I said that in like the most complicated way ever. And it was not even out of like wanting to be harsh. It was actually out of me fearing for their safety. And at the
Sure.
time, of course, I had way less training than I do now, and I still have so much to learn. But I remember feeling like shit. Like should they even carry? Like they don't feel comfortable carrying with one in the chamber. So like does that mean they should even have a gun on them? Like are they a bigger threat to themselves? And I remember being like, well, maybe you just shouldn't carry yet. Like maybe take some time.
Hmm.
Like let's go to the range. And I don't think I was rude in any way. Like I just remember like as someone that knew more than them at the time, when it comes to like gun skills, not maybe even like much about real life combatives, I was like, I felt like it was my duty to maybe tell them to hold off on carrying. And so, of
Sure.
course, like we live and learn, and I'm giving
Yeah.
myself grace for that. But I'm happy
Yeah.
to hear that from you. That's a great. I needed that to know that. So
Yeah. Absolutely. And I feel like too, people carrying without one in the chamber, they're still carrying. And now, it's not the stakes, right? Or it's not the odds, it's the stakes, right? So,
right,
what are the chances that they're going to have to use the pistol? Probably pretty slim, right? If we're honest to the problem.
yeah,
But the fact that they're carrying, it allows them to become acclimated, right? Like I have this thing on me. I'm working my way through all the discomfort of concealed carry and the responsibilities that go with it and all those things, like my holster and how does this, am I concealing this thing correctly? Like there's this process, there's this learning curve that they're experiencing. In addition to the I'm not comfortable with one in the chamber because whatever.
right,
Um, I feel like we have to give folks like that the opportunity to go through that learning curve. And if you think about it, they're sorting out so many things. Just the fact that they're carrying creates this heightened, level of intensity or intention rather in their body. And then, maybe they don't have the greatest holster, it's not comfortable. They maybe picked a pistol that wasn't good for them. There's all kinds of things at play. And so it's like, how about we let them have a little bit of time to learn? Let's let them have a little bit of time to figure it out. And it took me a while to understand that better. It took me a while to kind of get that um, you got to give them time to sort everything out because there's a lot going on, you know. And I think about it too. Like if we look at it from the jiu-jitsu perspective, especially in a gym like mine, where nighttime classes, let's say our foundations class, which is our beginners class, like zero stripe white belt, like they don't even know how to tie their belt yet. They walk on the mat. There's 40 plus people in the area of the mat that we're in. There's another 40 people or more on the other side that's all intermediate and advanced students who are getting after it. There's timers going off, there's people hitting bags, there's people in the boxing ring, there's all kinds of stuff happening. And now I have some guy trying to explain to me how to do an armbar. And I'm just getting overwhelmed. It's sensory overwhelm. And so if you look at it from that perspective, if that's what happens just in jiu-jitsu, can you imagine what's happening to some new guy or gal who's like, okay, I'm going to conceal carry. I got my concealed carry permit, or maybe I'm in a constitutional carry state. I'm going to get this holster on that I'm really not sure how it works because, my concealed carry class really didn't cover this part. And I'm going to get this holster on. I'm going to hopefully be concealed, and I'm going to go to the grocery store and I'm going to get some milk and some eggs, and hopefully nobody figures out I'm carrying a gun. Right? It's a lot. Now I'm sitting in this car driving, and wait, this holster's not comfortable at all. It was comfortable standing, but now it's not comfortable sitting. And oh, when I get out, my seatbelt gets caught on it, or my shirt rises up over it, or there's all these things that happen, right? If we think back to our first days of concealed carry, that's what's happening to this person. And then on top of that, they're not overly comfortable with a loaded gun, right? Like one in the chamber. So now we're going to add even more to them. And so I've had to learn over the years to just like let the process play out. Let them figure it out. Like I'm going to guide them, I'm going to help them to discover for themselves what I think they need to discover, right? Like let them kind of, it's kind of like when you get your kid or whatever to learn how to tie their own shoes, right? Like Did I teach them? Yeah. Did they discover it for themselves though? Yes. Right. Did I have a role in that? Absolutely. You know,
Right.
it's the same thing. Like, let them discover that it's okay to carry with one in the chamber, that it's safe. Let them discover that all these other factors will eventually not play in. Like, eventually what you think is your pistol screaming through your shirt and the whole world can see it, you'll realize nobody's even paying attention.
Yeah.
Nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could walk through with the thing completely exposed and people would notice, you know? And
Oh, for
so,
sure.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, but it takes time, and they've
Yeah.
got all this noise as they're trying to process all these different things. And so, yeah, I just feel like it's one of those things where pick our battles.
Absolutely.
Yeah, pick our
Yes.
battles,
Yes.
like they'll get there.
Yes.
They'll get
Yeah.
there.
It's definitely a big learning moment for me. And I think it was because I don't even think at the time I had taken ECQC. I just, it was that initial like uptick in followers I think I had on social media, and
Yeah,
I was like, oh, people are asking me for advice. Like, I must know something. And then
sure.
it's kind of like the Dunning Kruger effect. I think I'm saying that
Yeah,
correctly, right? Dunning
yeah,
Kruger. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I like just did not know how much I did not know. And
Sure.
I think I let my fear overcome me for my family member that I said this to. And we've had a lot of
Yeah.
conversations since um uh that I've naturally like gone against that since I've said that. And I've been
Yeah.
someone to encourage them to train more. But um yeah, I'm happy that someone as qualified as you is here to kind of say that. And I want to put this out there on my lives and like my story Q&As, I get a lot of questions from men that are trying to get their women into carrying a gun, and like how should they say it?
Yeah.
What should they say? And I feel like this would be a great episode to encourage them to listen to hear that and what you just said. So that's
Yeah.
exciting.
For
I love
sure.
having referrals to people like you that say it, and not just someone
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, it's like that Dunning Kruger thing. And we always have to remember, like, the whole Dunning Kruger thing has been um, misused as like a baseball bat, right? Like, it's, you don't know what you don't know, so stay in your lane. That's
Right.
never the intent. The intent was, I don't know what I don't know. So how do I discover what I don't know?
Right.
So how do I keep myself in a perpetual state of curiosity and learning so that I discover what I don't know before I catastrophically discover what I don't know, right? And I think that's important. Like what you said, you didn't know what you didn't know, but you didn't let that stop you from trying to figure it out, right? And that's the important part. We've got to be like, listen, I don't know what I don't know. How do I figure out what I don't know without pain, right? Without pain. Like, how do I figure out what I don't know without having some sort of like life altering event that forces me to have to learn quickly how much I didn't know? And I feel like as long as we are constantly asking ourselves, what don't I know about this? Is that really the best answer? There was a time in my life where, you know, I would have been 100% in agreement with the person. It's like, well, if you can't carry with one in the chamber because you're worried about it, well, then your mindset's all wrong. You probably shouldn't be carrying at all, you know? And I've come full circle on that because I've had to realize like that's not always the whole story. There is, everything we already talked about. There's so much more going on in this new person's head that let's not add to it. Let's kind of, my wife she was a midwife. She caught over 100 babies, and she ran a midwife, like a birthing center, and she
Wow.
calls it midwifing people. She's
Hmm.
she's like, you have to midwife
Yeah.
people. You have to talk them through it. Like, you can't have the
I
baby
love
for
that.
them. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I can't have the baby for you, but I'm going to talk you through the process so that you know what's coming and you can start to problem solve for yourself and figure out what needs to happen next. And so I think a lot of what we do as coaches in this field is just helping people solve problems in real time. and how can we create situations where they learn how to problem solve, and then we don't have to teach as much as guide. I think that's super important. That distinction is really important.
Yes, and I love that we're kind of creeping up on almost like a mental management system. Like how do we stay in line to learn and also kind of appreciate what we have learned. And I know we talked about that a little bit before this episode. I'd love to kind of pivot in that direction and talk about what do you do to, or what's your go-to mental management system? What's like some of the biggest, what are some of the biggest things you've learned along the way and all of your accomplishments when it comes to like your thought process and giving yourself grace and growing all at once? I know it's not very, I didn't say that very well, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think like the first thing is, there's a lot of, maybe not a lot, but in the circles I'm in, there's a lot of talk about like that positive mental attitude, like PMA, and always staying solution focused, always looking for the answer, never focusing on the problem. And I feel like that has always been the key for me in the growth process and the self-development process. Has always been, life's going to be hard, there's always going to be problems. What I have to look for is, what am I supposed to learn from this? The the worst times in my life were when I looked at the whatever was happening to me as something that was happening to me. You know, like, I can't believe I'm going through this. I can't believe this is happening to me. Once I learned to pivot and start going, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Why this is happening for me? Like, all these circumstances are happening for me. Everything is happening in a way to serve me, to make me better. So, what is it that I'm supposed to learn? What am I supposed to take from this? And how then will I use it to help others? Because I feel like ultimately our purpose here is to serve others. Our purpose here is to live a life of service. And I can't serve others if I've never gone through anything. I can't help others if I've never experienced any pain. There's a old saying, it's in Korean. I always botch it, so I'm not going to try the Korean. But the English translation of it is basically, never trust a man who doesn't walk with a limp. Like, don't trust a guy who hasn't been through something and hasn't had some hard times and has some scars as a result. And so that's how I look at it, is mentally, I want to approach everything as, ultimately, this is going to help me help others. Like, I don't know right now, it's not clear to me what the purpose of whatever it is that I'm going through, but I do know this: when I get through this, I'm going to be able to help others. I'm going to be of service. I'll be a better servant to my people, in that I will be smarter. I'll be more empathetic. I will understand better, and I will be able to speak better to their problems when they go through the same thing, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's kind of where my head goes when I start thinking about mindset, um, the mental game. I call it a game, but it's just the mental side of what we're doing.
Right.
Like, that's what I think about. Like, how do I, there's like, I don't get too far into like religious talks or anything like that, because it's just, I feel like everybody's journey is their own to figure out, and I'm not here to lecture anybody. But I do feel like there's a passage like in the Bible where it talks about, what was meant for evil, God intended for good, right? What was meant to break me ended up making me. Like, the things that have come against me, where I thought, I'm not going to get through this. Like, this is the one, man. This is going to destroy me. Ended up making me so indestructible, so just so much tougher and so much better. And so whenever I think about that kind of stuff, whenever I think about the mental side of what we do and how to train others, I always go to that. Like, What are you going through? Right? What are you struggling with? And now let's find how this is going to make you better. Because this is happening for you. It's not happening to you. So let's talk about why this is happening for you. Like, what are we meant to learn from this? What are you meant to take from this and become better? And then how will you use this? I don't care what it is. Like, I have a friend who's going through a DUI right now. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, it sucks. Like, you messed up, you know? But that's not your final story. That was a story in a moment where you messed up. And thank God nobody got hurt. The only thing
Right.
that's getting hurt is your pocketbook and your bank account right now and your pride,
Yeah,
right?
a little bit of pride for sure.
Yeah. But moving forward, what's coming out of this that's good for you, right? You stop drinking. You understand now, like, man, you understand what other people are going through and that have been through this before. People that maybe in the past you were like, look at that dumbass. You know, maybe you judged them harshly. Maybe you came down on them. Well, now you get it, right? Like, you came out of this without, like, you have a traffic offense, right? But you didn't come out of it with manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter, or anything like that. So, all right, man, how do we go forward from here? How do we turn this around, right? Like, you never drink again. Make that vow to yourself. Like, I'm never going to drink alcohol again. I'm going to give back to my community in some way to make amends for this. What can I do to come out of this in a way that helps me or puts me in a position where I can help others, right? And it's been cool to watch them go through this process because they're learning so much about themselves now. You know, like, you don't get to drive. You know, you lost that privilege. There's so many things, but it's like, first things first, take responsibility for your role. You know, what did I do to bring this upon myself? And now what is this doing for me? How is this teaching me? How is this making me better? And then how, after this, how is this going to help me serve others? How is this going to help me um, play a role in the lives of others who might go through something similar where I can help them, you know? So I'm not sure if any of that makes sense.
It does.
Or,
It absolutely
you know,
does. I'm definitely
yeah.
tracking. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that seriously. And what are some of the resources over the years you've had to help, like with the mental management side of things, books or lessons or just people you've learned from, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, for sure. So, probably the number one book that I like for everything is the Emmett Fox book. It's old. It's from like 1930, and it's the 7 day mental fast or mental diet. It's so good. It's basically this. The whole book, you can get it on PDF for free. You know, you can download it. It's basically, go 7 days without a negative thought, and that's the goal. And you rarely do that. People rarely make 7 days without a negative thought. But the point is that when you have the negative thought, if it derails you, spins you out, you reset and go again. So the diet starts every time you get knocked off track by a negative thought. And then the cool thing is that at some point in time, you're not thinking about it any longer because you've repeated the process so many times. It's just what you do. You go without a negative thought as long as possible. And the benefit of that is that most of our negative thoughts are what? Self-hate, self-limiting, right?
Yep.
I don't have
Yep.
I rarely have negative thoughts about other people, right? I rarely do. Like, most of us, we go through our day thinking about, oh man, I can't. I did this the other day. I'm driving to the gym. It's 5:30 in the morning, and I realize that for the last 5 minutes, I've been replaying a conversation I had over 20 years ago, where I said something stupid to a friend and hurt them, hurt their feelings, and I'm replaying it. And I'm just beating myself down like, man, what the heck? Why would I do that? And I'm just going through this whole thing and I finally had to like, whoa, hold on. I remember I got to the red light near the gym. Like I'm like seconds from opening the gym for the day. And I'm sitting at the red light when I finally snapped out of it. I'm like, wait a second. I 100% guarantee that if I call him right now, he will not know what I'm talking about. I'm the only one keeping this alive. I'm the only one keeping this in play. Why? Because it limits me. It's self-limiting behavior. And so it keeps me in check. And that's not good. That's negative. So I need to immediately stop myself and run through some quick questions, which are, is this true? Not now. It was true then. Yes. Did I say something stupid? Yes. Um, did I make amends for it? Yes. Do I still need to beat myself up about it? Absolutely not. So then let's move on. Right. And so that is a result of just reading that book and practicing that mental diet and just learning how to recognize when mental thoughts are coming up, mental things are starting to, or negative things rather, are starting to bubble up. See them, catch them, shut them down. Don't let them continue to grow into a place where you can't make a move because you just don't believe in yourself because you're just convinced that you're going to screw up. So that's like one of the first ones I like. Man, the oh man, we just were talking about it. Carolyn
Yes.
Dweck's book about growth mindset. I think that's really a good one to read too, just because it's solution focused. It teaches us to be solution focused rather than problem focused. I think that's a good one. There's so many, but I would start with those and just kind of build out from there. And just also like the classics, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. That's another good one of just getting your mental processes and your daily routines, your habits down. Atomic Habits. I think his name's James Clear. I
There.
think is the name of that author. That's a really good one too. Where you just talk about how do I develop good habits? How do I put myself in a good environment and you know level up, move myself to a different space mentally where I'm more productive and better for myself. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, Atomic Habits is amazing. I can attest to that.
Yeah. It's such a good one. Such a good one.
Absolutely. I love what you said earlier. I was talking to my therapist the other day about the difference between toxic positivity and like taking your thoughts captive. So rather
Mm-hmm.
than just having a negative thought and being like, no, screw off, I'm not going to think about you, actually like taking it captive, asking yourself questions to move through it, not over it, and then
Mm-hmm.
proceeding on with your day. Like, I love that you just kind of, I love that you talked about positive thinking without it being like toxic positivity, which I feel like is all over the internet and just like in
Oh yeah.
every space ever. Just because people
Yeah.
take it the wrong way when they say think
Yeah.
positively, like it's easy to just kind of think of it one dimensionally. So I appreciate you going into that, and good for you. You sound like you have a really good like as far as your emotional intelligence. I mean, like the fact that you were able to take that thought captive. And I kind of thought I was the only person in this world that did that, but I definitely do that all the time. Like I will sit there and just like sink into this awkward conversation and replay it, just like you said, over in my head. And it takes something like stopping at a red light or someone um saying something to me or getting a phone call to like break me out of it, and then I'm like, why was I doing that? Like
Yeah.
I it's yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting to hear
right.
that
And
you
you're just like,
do that too.
wait a second. I don't even remember the last 5 minutes of my drive because I've been so engulfed in this conversation with myself. Nobody's even
Yes.
here, you know?
Right.
And yeah, and then like you said, you start going back through it and like, okay, hold on.
Yes.
Is this true? Okay, yeah, it's true, but it's not true now.
Right.
So why is it relevant? It's not. So, I've made amends. Let's move forward. It's so important. It's so important.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I remember you telling me at the Guardian conference you did like a, was it 45 days of running a 5K? I can't remember exactly like what
Yeah,
the
so
numbers
we
were.
did we did a 5K a day for 30 days. We did a marathon a day for 30 days. So yeah, we've done a bunch
That's
of
incredible.
weird challenges. I don't even,
Nice. So
you
kind of like
know.
a physical challenge to challenge the mind in a way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
is. It's just to put yourself in that place of discomfort and then find a way to be comfortable there, and also use it as a way to show gratitude, to the universe, to God, to whatever you believe in, just to say, look, you gave me another day. I'm going to do something exceptional. I'm going to go run a marathon. I'm going to go um, live and move and enjoy the opportunity to be out here and do this stuff, and as silly as that sounds, it's an exercise in gratitude. It's a challenge to see if it's even possible to do it, but it's also an exercise in gratitude of just being extremely grateful for another day. Like we were talking, I think we were talking before we started recording about most of us, we underestimate how much work it's going to take. We underestimate how long it's going to take. And we also underestimate how much time we have left. And so I never want to ever, ever, ever take that for granted. I want to always be conscious of the fact that I have an expiration date. And for whatever reason, I was given another day. So thank you. And let me do something cool to express my gratitude. Not because I want people to see me do it or people to be like, oh, that's badass. Like, yeah, that feels good. Of course it does, right? When your friends are like, why do you do all this weird stuff? Like that
Right.
kind of feels good. It's kind of like, yeah, man, I'm not like everybody else. I'm a little different.
Right.
And that's always a cool feeling. I fully admit the role that ego plays in that. But also the other side of it is I'm just grateful, man. And this is how I show it, you know, because a lot of this stuff is done kind of in the dark. Nobody knows, nobody, you know, you and I could agree like, hey, let's do a challenge together. We're not going to eat any sugar for the next 30 days. Um, we're going to only drink water and black coffee for the next 30 days. And also, let's run a 10K every day and we'll check in with each other, right?
Right.
Nobody else is going to know we did it. Nobody else is going to ever know unless we talk about it. And you and I, because we're on opposite areas of the country, I'm never going to really know if you did it or not,
Right.
right? Yeah,
Right.
right. There's
Right.
an ethical integrity thing there involved, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like, but I'm going to do it
Right.
and you're going to do it.
Right.
And it's going to be this cool thing that we did that we weren't even sure if we could finish it once we started
Right.
it. And then also, in a weird way, it's saying thank you to whatever we believe in, that we have another day, that I have another opportunity, that I am in a place physically. Sorry, man, my voice is messed up.
Oh no, you're fine.
I'm in a place physically where I can do this kind of stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
it's kind of cool. And I'm grateful and thankful. And there's not a second when I'm doing that kind of stuff that I'm not extremely grateful, which also goes back to like the mental thing, like when we talk about frequency and emotional frequencies and emotional vibrations and stuff, unconditional love is the highest, right? Like that's as godlike as you can get. But I will admit I can't get there. There's people I just cannot love, and it's just how it is, But gratitude is next. Gratitude is right there under unconditional love. So gratitude is it's an actual act. it's something I can do. I can make myself be grateful. And so I feel like those things like that, like I'm going to get up at 3 in the morning. I'm going to be out the door by 4 running, it's me showing gratitude, like thank you for another day. Thank you for a body that can still get out and do this stuff, you know? Yeah. So,
Yes. Absolutely. I've been slowly scaling back my training in the morning, and I always feel like when I do that, like the earlier I train, the more connected to myself I feel, and like the
yes.
more moments I have in my day to like reflect on my day and appreciate my day. So definitely resonating with that. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it starts the day right,
Yes,
you know?
for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
it
Is
starts
that
it.
what is your current training regimen? That's one thing I wanted to ask before we end the episode for sure.
Yeah. Should I turn the light on?
Oh, sure. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
the
Yeah.
sun the sun dropped here
Yes.
quick.
I noticed that a little bit.
Yeah, like it's kind
Perfect.
of funny. My daughter the other day sent me some meme. It's like, because she hates daylight savings. She lives in Chicago, and she's like, this daylight savings thing, like this is bogus. Like it's dark when I wake up, dark when I go to bed. So I don't know what you
Yes.
guys are saving all this daylight for, but we could use some of it, you know. So I was like,
That's
that's kind
really
of funny.
funny.
I didn't think of it that way.
That's
Um,
so true.
all right.
Yeah.
So my
Motivation to wake up early.
yeah. So
Yeah.
my so you were asking what is my daily training
Yes.
routine type thing? Cool.
Hmm.
Um, so what I do is I'm up by 3 o'clock. So I get up at 3 in the morning, regardless of when I go to bed. Um, so I will get up at 3 and I read. I say that's the first thing I do is I read something, uh, always self-development type stuff. So I'm always reading something that's just kind of pushing me right now. I've been reading this one. This it's really kind of like spacey. It's called The Way of Initiation by
Oh,
Rudolf Steiner. It's kind of new agey,
yes.
or it's also called How to Attain Knowledge of the Higher Worlds. It's all about like frequency and vibration, and it's really cool. It's really trippy, but it's really cool and it's really challenging. I like to read stuff about like self development and personal development, but I also like to read stuff that challenges me. Stuff that makes me go, I don't know about that. But then I read it again until I get it. So I start off reading, and then I will do while I'm doing that. I would drink like a cup of instant coffee because,
Okay.
and which I catch constant grief about that. But
It's okay.
instant coffee is just it's easier at 3 in the morning than to make
Yeah.
an entire pot, which I'm not going to drink the entire pot, and then it's
Right.
just going to sit there. So I will knock out like this cup of instant coffee, and then I will get out the door. So by 4 o'clock, I'm out the door and I go for my run. So I will do some sort of run or walk for an hour. That goes that goes until 5, and then I come in and get dressed for the gym. And I have to be at the gym. So I usually get to the gym between 5:30, 5:45. Comp team starts at 6. So I'm on the mat warming up. And then we train from 5 to 6. And then, or I'm sorry, from 6 to 7. And then at 7, I teach intermediate advanced jiu-jitsu. So that's an hour that I'll teach. Sometimes I'll jump in with those guys if there's an odd number, and roll around with those guys a little bit. And then 8 to 9 is open mat. So I'll get some more rounds in there. And then at 9 to 9:30, somewhere in there, I'll eat my first meal. And it's always the same stuff, like chicken and rice or chicken and vegetables, something along that line, you know. And then I'll start emailing, checking in with like because I train people online, so then I start checking in with them and making sure they're good, make sure everybody's got what they need, doing what they're supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
and keeping them on track. And then that'll take me through until noon class, and then I teach a class at noon, a lot of times what I'll do too in the morning, somewhere in there. So I try to work for 40 minutes. So I'll work for 40 minutes online, either responding to messages or reaching out to people that I'm coaching. And then for 20 minutes, I'll do some sort of workout. So I'll work for 40 minutes, and then for 20 minutes, I'll do some sort of high intensity interval thing, burpees, jump rope, row, get on the row machine or the assault bike, do some sprints. What that does is that kind of like gets me jacked up again, wakes me up, gets me, and also gets me out of that sedentary thing where I'm just sitting, you know. And also, it's good for my mind, because then when I get on the calls with people or whatever, now I'm hyped again, and
Right.
so I can kind of pump some energy their way, and especially if they're like, oh man, I'm 1,700 calories, and it's like, oh man, I feel you. I know what you're going through. I've done it, let's go. And I can get them kind of psyched and get them pumped up. And then I teach class at noon. That goes noon to 1. And then from 1 until whenever we get done, we have another open mat. So try to get some more rolls in there. And then usually like 2:30, I'll be done, and then I'll head out, and then that's when I go lift weights. And so I'll go lift weights, and I do like a very simple workout routine. I don't get too complicated. I just try to get as strong as possible, and then head home, and then same thing again. Get on the computer, talk to clients, coach people, read a little bit, if possible, and also answer like any kind of direct messages, anything like that come in. I'll answer those, try to respond to everybody. Um, and then usually, same thing again. I'll work for 40 minutes, take a 20-minute break, go run some sprints or jump rope or do some burpees or something just to get myself, you know, energized again, and then get back on the phone, get back on the computer and talk to people. And that'll go until my wife gets home. She works at the VA. She's a nurse. So she'll get home around 5:30, and we'll have something to eat. We'll hang out. And then after that, it's just, for me, it's family time. So she doesn't mind. It's like she gets it, because I was already doing this when she met me. So she gets that this is my schedule. This is how I am. Um, I will, answer direct messages. I'll reach out to clients. I'll talk to people. People hit me up about getting on the program, stuff like that. Have those conversations, but I do my best to not scroll. So I don't want to be on my phone just mindlessly scrolling when she's sitting right there, and we could be hanging out, talking or whatever. And so, she's cool as long as she knows it's work, but if I'm just scrolling and, then that creates issues. So I try not to, yeah, I try to be conscious of that. Even when I'm hanging out with friends, it's like,
Right.
I don't want to be on my phone. If I'm on my phone, if we're hanging out, like we're at a conference or a class or whatever, and we're hanging out and you see me on my phone, just know I'm answering somebody.
Right.
I'm not scrolling. Like,
Right.
not my thing. I'm not interested in that. So, and then usually by like 9:30 or 10, start wrapping up for the day. That's it. No, I'll be in bed by 10 or 10:30. Sometimes midnight if we're working hard, if we're really pushing on something, midnight. But and then that's it. That's my day, and I do that 7 days a week. Unless I'm traveling. But even when I travel, I'm up by 3, out the door, get my run in. Still do that. I might not be able to lift weights and roll, but I do everything else. It's all the same. Like, I'm just such a creature of habit. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, especially after reading Atomic Habits and just what he talks about in that book about just like creating habits that set you up for success, and also creating these habits where it's not something you do, but it's something that you are. This is who you are, and it's that consistency and that just dependability that people know and expect from you over time that creates those relationships that are deep, where people know, like, this is who you are. This is what you say and this is what you do. And the two are the same. Like, You don't say something that you don't do. You don't tell people, like, I don't tell the people that I coach, like, everything I tell them to do, they see me do. When I post pictures in the morning on Instagram in my stories of me being out the door running at 4 in the morning, I don't do that for people to be like, oh, look, that dude's a badass, because nobody cares, right? Like, what's the difference in running at 4 in the morning or running at 7 in the morning? There's no difference, physically. It's just that's the only time I can do it, because of my
Right.
schedule. But but I do it so that the people that I coach can see, like, hey man, here it is. Check it out. I'm doing what I tell you to do. You know, when I post the posts about me lifting weights or rolling or whatever, it's accountability. Like, here, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm telling you to do, right? We're in this together. I'm not going to ever ask you to do something you're not going to see me doing, you know? And so yeah, that's it. I just try to be, as boring as it seems, it's not to me, but it's just day in and day out. I do everything I'm supposed to do, and I expect the same from you. If you're my people, I expect the same from you. So yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
my day in and day out schedule. It's the same.
Incredible. Yeah, 3's a little late for me personally. I like to get up at 2, but I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
right.
That's incredible. I'm
Right.
slowly pushing my schedule back to like 6 a.m. and I'm like, that is
Nice.
huge for me. But yeah, I love those are the best days when I wake up and get my lift. My coach has increased my cardio to 55 minutes of incline walk in addition to my
Nice.
lift. So that's a good 2 hour chunk of like lifting and walking that
Yeah.
I hate feeling that lull of like having to push that off to the end of the day, and
Yeah.
it's not the same as getting it done early. It really
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's a
I
different vibe, right? It's a
yes, it's a
different.
different vibe.
Yeah.
Yes,
Early in the morning, nobody's out there. It's quiet.
yeah,
It's just a different thing.
yes. And I've also recently had some really creepy gym interactions at night, like so
Really.
much that I feel like the universe is pushing me to morning workouts just from yeah. So one was I was at my bodybuilder gym. Like it's a really nice gym. It's in a small warehouse. It's not even like there's no AC in the summer or anything, but the equipment's really nice. It's so clean. It's the cleanest gym I go to. And this guy walked in and took the squat rack directly next to me. And I noticed he was watching me because the mirror was right in front of me. It wasn't hard to see him.
Yeah. So you can
And
see
I
it.
right, yeah, not very slick.
Right.
And I noticed he started when I would start to lift, when I would start my set, he would start his set. And I at first I was like, maybe I'm just like being paranoid and he just happens to be doing the same workout as me.
Yeah.
And then I took off I always wear sweatpants if I wear shorts just because I don't like being cold. So take my sweatpants off to like get down to my shorts because I'm like sweating at that point. And I heard him say like, "Oh, getting serious, are we?" And I like took my AirPod out and I was like, "Yeah, like finally getting that sweat going, like trying to be polite but also not, continue the conversation." So I
Yeah.
put my AirPod back in. It actually wasn't even my AirPods. It was these like stringy ones that like you can see
Oh
really
yeah.
well. So I start putting that back in, and I notice he's still talking. So I take my AirPod back out, like just wondering, like, okay,
Yeah.
what's going on?
All right.
And yeah, and he starts telling me about how he wasn't going to come to the gym, but he's so glad he did because like it's leg day and you can't skip leg day. And I was like, yeah, like good for you. Like a lot of people at home right now skipping leg day, so good job. And so I I put my headphone back in. He's still talking, and I was like, okay, so social norms are out of the picture for this
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
He
Something's
starts
wrong.
telling me, yeah, he starts telling me about like how his wife doesn't train and he wants her to train, and I was like, okay, cool, man, like lead by example. I'm just gonna put my AirPod back in and get to training. So I notice he like hurries to the bar to like start when I do. So I act like I can't see him. I like back off, and then he backs off. And so like I had the weight on my shoulders. I put the weight back down. I back off, and he does the same thing. So he's like following It's so
Oh
weird. This is
wow.
the first time this had ever
So
happened.
weird.
So weird. And so I take a few moments. I act like I'm messing with my headphones and my hair. Like I go back and he goes back. So I was like, okay, cool. This is actually happening. So I do like one rep and I rack and then I unload my weights as fast as possible. He racks, he starts talking to me. I finally tell him like, hey man, I'm really trying to focus on my lift here. So like
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave you be if you can leave me be. He continues to talk. So I finally walk away thinking like I'll just go do a different workout. But when
Yeah.
I go to this abduction machine because it's the only piece of leg equipment that's across the room. Otherwise, it's like all this upper body equipment, and it was lower body day for me.
Yeah.
And he's watching me from across the room. So I finally just pick up my things and leave. And I just think like it's a bad night. I wasn't feeling it. I already didn't want to be there because I had pushed my lift off so late and I felt like my energy was at a lull and
Yeah.
it's dark outside, all this stuff. And then, not even joking, 2 days later, I go to, and this was at Planet Fitness. So, I mean, what could I expect, I guess? But like, you gotta do what you gotta do. It's the
Right.
only gym within 10 minutes of me. So
Yeah.
I go to the gym. I push my workout off to the end of the day, and I noticed this guy looking at me in the parking lot, and I thought, I'm just paranoid from the other day. Like this is just in my head. I'm fine. So I walk in and I like maintain eye contact with him to just be like, I see you, you know.
Yeah.
And I go to my workout. My friend calls me in the middle of my workouts. Lisa, she's my best friend. She's in the concealed carry world, and we're just chatting on the phone. And he's one of the only people around me because it's that late. I was there at like 9,
Yeah.
and yeah, I know, not smart. And I see him looking at me and I realize like, oh my God, am I talking loud? Like how like my bad. Like he's obviously looking at me because he's annoyed that I'm talking loud. So I take one of my earbuds out and I like keep talking and I notice like I'm actually whispering at that point. Like there's no way that's what he's looking at me for. And he keeps staring at me. And next thing I know, I'm in the middle of a hip thrust, by the way, which is so awkward because like
Yeah.
dude's like making eye contact and it's not the time to make eye contact.
Right. Not now,
So
dude. Not now.
exactly. So he makes a beeline, like not even just like a stroll. Dude like walks towards me with a purpose. So I drop the weight. I'm luckily only doing like B stands, dumbbell, so I can just like take the dumbbell off. I stand up really fast and I get on the other side of my bench to like put something between us. And I was like, hey man, I'm gonna stop you right there. What can I do to help you? Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
was like, you're getting a little close. What's up, man? And he was like, I know you, and did not say it in like a friendly way. He was like, I know
Right.
you. And I'm over here thinking like, do I look like someone that's did not swipe on him on Tinder or something? Like all these
Yeah.
things are
Right.
going through my head. And
Yeah.
of course, like my page is like okay, like a decent size, but I don't think I'm any type of celebrity that would be recognized.
Yeah.
And so I don't even think about my page at first. And then I realized like, oh, I'll just bring up my page and be like, oh, like I have a page for women's self-defense. Like, does that sound familiar? You know, like staying
Yeah.
away from the word firearm and stuff.
Right.
Um, and he was like, no, I think I know you from something else. And I was like, ah, man, you know, if you don't know me from there, you're not going to know me.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, he just turns around and walks away. No other words. And
Wow.
my friend is in my ear, like, did you mention you're married? Like, what else do you have to tell this guy? And I tell her, like, he walked away. And she was like, did he say anything? And I was like, no, he literally just walked away. So I
Wow.
think I'll just leave, right? Like, I'll leave. But
Yeah.
I was kind of feeling weird because I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to let someone else make me feel like I need to leave. I hated the other day. I went home and, like, I'm not even going to lie, I like teared up on the way home because I was just like, why do men have to be so weird?
Oh yeah.
And, right. And,
Right.
next thing I know, he's making another beeline for me. He comes back up. He does the same thing. He insists he knows me. I finally tell him, like, man, unless you know me from my page, um, and he was like, and then he was like, well, just give me your social media. And I was like, no, man, like, I don't think you need it. If you're not in like the self defense space, you really won't know me.
Right.
And he was like, okay, turns around and walks away. So at that point, I left because I was like, never mind. Like, this is too weird. I take a picture of his
Yeah.
car because remember, I saw him looking at me from his car.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember leaving that night and I like ranted to my friend on the phone 'cause she's of course like had to leave before because of men. And
Yeah,
I remember like the next week I started my early morning workouts again. I was like, I don't think I'm meant to train at night. So
yeah, yeah. That's weird.
it's so weird. And that like
That
usually doesn't
is,
happen to me. Like it's usually a really supportive environment. Like I don't know.
yeah,
So
yeah. That is very weird. Like I don't know. I would have to ask my wife if she's had like those kind of things. I don't know because it's so foreign to me because I've never done that. I've never seen a female athlete in the gym lifting or training and been like, "Hey, I'm gonna go bother them."
right.
Like it's just so
Yes.
like I don't even understand the thought process. Like what in the
No.
world, you know?
Definitely not. That was a
Jeez.
moment where I was like, thank God for managing unknown contacts. Like, if I
Yeah,
hadn't worked
definitely.
mucking and working my voice, like when he was walking towards me, I was like, I was flashing back to ECQC. I was like, damn,
Yeah,
like, okay, I still got it.
yeah, it's still
Like, so
there. Still
yes.
there.
Yeah. I went on a rant for a
Mhm.
while there, but I don't even know why I went on that trail. I think I was talking about morning workouts, but yeah, I was
Yeah,
kind of
just needing to
shunted into
go.
morning workouts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a sign you need to shift back to mornings. Yeah,
For
just stay away.
sure.
Nighttime weirdos come out. Just train in the
Yes.
morning, you know?
Exactly. Yes. Well, thank you for sharing your routine with the listeners. And I'm excited to list these books. Anything that guest speakers mention in the episodes, I like to link in the show notes, which are the notes
Oh,
below the
cool.
title. So if anyone's
Yeah.
listening and they're interested in reading The Growth Mindset and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, it will all be linked in the show notes. Um, so yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
I've
cool.
gotten to ask all the questions I wanted to ask, and we've officially almost been on for 2 hours. So
Oh, cool.
um, I I've
Nice.
enjoyed this so much. It's been an honor, Paul, to have you on, to meet you. I remember the first time I'd heard of you, just like they were talking about how you were a highly effective individual in so many different areas, and like I just knew I was like I got to have this guy on my podcast because he's connecting the two worlds of
Nice.
competitive, martial arts and weapons, and we need more of that in the industry. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for
for
coming
sure.
on.
Definitely, man. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always an honor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we go, is there anything you want to send the listeners off with?
Um, I would say just make sure that everything you do, it's holistic in nature, right? Like when I'm training, I'm always training everything, not just one thing. I'm always thinking about everything that I'm trying to develop and improve and evolve. So mindset isn't just sitting around thinking about how when I see red, it's not that. It's did I drink all my water today? Was I present when I had conversations with my friends? Am I the best man or woman I can be for the people in my circle? Um, did I get up and go do my run even though I didn't want to? That those are the things that are going to make you harder to hurt, harder to kill, make you more capable because you're doing the things that are uncomfortable and you're finding a way to be comfortable there. And so that makes you a more capable person. And so if I could encourage people to do anything, it would just be that. Like always, always think everything I'm doing is making me more mentally strong, right? Am I building an indomitable will? And if I'm not, then what can I do to do that? And it's always going to be the thing that you don't want to do, right?
Right.
So, so yeah, that
Yes.
would be the thing I would encourage people to do. Like, just focus on that. Everything else will fall into place. Everything else you can do. If anybody's done it, you can do it. But the mental stuff, focus on that. Mindset is everything, you know? So,
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I definitely needed to hear that. I know I keep saying that, but it's so true. It's so true.
right.
Thank you so much, Paul. And if you're listening, listener, we always have highlights on our Instagram at She Shield Pod, along with TikTok. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Any resources you would like to collect from this episode, along with how to connect with Paul, will be linked in the show notes. If you like the podcast, you can sincerely help by liking, subscribing, and leaving a review. And if you or anyone you know is a firearms owner experiencing a crisis, look into holdmyguns.org. They are an organization that will connect you with a local gun shop or FFL to store your firearm for you, or an integral part to the firearm at least. The link to access their website and to find a storage location partner is available in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and stay safe and stay vigilant. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.